Welcome back to Flashpoint. This morning we continue our interviews of some Charlotte City Council at large candidates. Today we're talking with Larken Egleston, currently a councilmember for District 1, running for an at-large seat. I ask you a question. I'm asking all the candidates first thing, your number one priority if you get elected to an at-large seat.
I think it's a tough question between affordable housing and transportation. But as the vice chair of the Transportation and Planning Committee currently, and with the departure of Mayor Pro Tem Julie Eisel, who chairs it, that's something I would hope to lead on. I think that's going to require a regional approach for us to get everybody in the greater Charlotte region on the same page for how we transform our mobility network, both for people who use their cars, but also people who want to use transit, want to bike, want to walk throughout our community and get from place to place, hopefully without a car. And so I think that's going to take a regional approach that I believe I've had the opportunity to build those relationships as our designee on two of our intergovernmental boards, one regionally, one statewide. And I think the understanding of our transportation network that I've gained as the vice chair of that committee currently. So they're both 1A and 1B, but I think for me, there'd probably be more of a focus on the transportation piece.
Speaking of Julie Eisel, she wrote an op-ed piece a few months ago about the dysfunction on City Council and how frustrating it was for her. For folks who share the frustration, why, for lack of a better term, should they not just throw all y'all out and start anew with some fresh faces?
I think that if you look past some of the petty bickering that's taken place throughout this last term, and admittedly it has, I think the pandemic caused us to not be able to build and strengthen the relationships with each other in the way that we would have otherwise in person. I think that was detrimental. But the fact of the matter is, despite all of that noise and despite the things that got focused on in terms of spats between council members at times, there's a lot of work that's been done. I think we weathered the pandemic and came out really strong and are still looking to make sure that we help our small businesses rebound in our community. And as we move past this pandemic, we've, in the last 4.5 years since a new crop of us got elected on council, we worked with the mayor and worked with our other colleagues to more than triple the affordable housing bond. We've done so much on the things that we ran on and things that we could have never seen coming. I don't think expected that 2 years ago we would be undertaking an entire police accountability exercise and trying to work on public safety in the ways that we have. We certainly didn't know we were going to be facing the pandemic. So despite some of the headlines about people arguing, a lot of work's gotten done on the things that we said we were going to work on. And so, I think that as far as throwing folks out of office, if you look at what's been accomplished, I think there's reason to keep a lot of us.
Let's talk about social districts. I know it's an issue that you care a lot about. We see other towns in the state doing it now that Raleigh signed off on it. What's your vision about here in Charlotte, and how do we make it a reality quickly?
Well, we just talked about this week at our council meeting that we want to launch a pilot for it. And I think that would likely end up being in my district because many of those most walkable, sort of dense urban neighborhoods are in my district. However, I hope that it's something that we can replicate throughout the city once we prove the concept in a pilot, because again, as we come out of COVID and as people are going to be maybe more prone to want to be outside now instead of inside of some of these businesses, our hospitality industry, which employs 1 in 9 people in the Charlotte community, is one of the ones that got hit the hardest during the pandemic. And it's just now starting to recover, particularly in our center city. So I think this is just another tool we can add to the toolbox that allows them to rebound and get back on their feet and back in a position of strength financially. So, I don't see why we wouldn't do it. We obviously need to take precautions. It's obviously not going to work in every part of our city, but in the places that already are sort of built for it, and I think we have several, I don't know why we wouldn't do it. So I hope we move quickly.
Specifically, where would you like to see that pilot program happen?
Well, it's a conversation that I've already started having with business owners in Plaza Midwood, but there's a number of places where I think it would be a good fit. So I'm open-minded to feedback I get. Not that it will be my decision, but it's something that I've been focused on. And so because of my familiarity with so many of the small business centers in Plaza Midwood, that's where I've been having some of those discussions and bouncing some of those ideas off of them to get their feedback. I think that would be a pretty turnkey place to do it. But again, I think we've got a number of places in Charlotte that would be good fits.
4-year terms, it keeps on coming up. Should you guys get 4-year terms?
I think from a best practice governance-wise, 4-year terms make sense. It's not a hill I'm going to die on if it's not what the community wants, but I think that you would get people that are able to make more bold, long-range decisions that are more in the best interest of the community than in their own political interest. At times, I think people are gun shy to do anything that is bold or at times what needs to be done because they see election right around the corner from day one of a new term. And so it's been frustrating to me at times to feel like that could be the motivation for folks. And it's why, on a federal scale, you see U.S. senators at times take more bold stances than U.S. House members because they have 6-year terms as opposed to 2-year terms. I wouldn't advocate for 6 on a city level, but if you look at best practices around the country, a number of things about the way that our government is structured don't necessarily fit with what would be considered best practices. And I think it is something that should be considered, but it's not a top priority for me.
Last thing, the best thing about Charlotte and the thing about Charlotte that drives you crazy.
Wow. Charlotte's diversity. I mean, we are such a melting pot of a city. 1 in 5 people in our community is foreign born. We have so many cultures and so many backgrounds and people from all over the country and all over the world that really come together and make something special. I mean, I think people quip about Charlotte not having some sort of an identity. I think that its identity is in its diversity. And so to me, we're not, an identity sometimes is just a place being about one thing. We're about so many things. And I think we do so many things well and have so many unique perspectives in our community that it's really that we don't have one thing that makes us special. We have a lot of things. The slogan that's been used for years is Charlotte's got a lot. I think it's true. The thing that maybe troubles me the most about Charlotte is not something that's unique to Charlotte, but I do think that we're increasingly becoming unaffordable for many people to live. And so many of the people that work in our community can't afford to live in our community. And I don't think that's okay. It's not a problem unique to Charlotte. It's a problem in every major metropolitan area in the country right now. It's one we're trying desperately to tackle and trying with much more aggressive approaches than I think have been taken in the past. But that's one of the things that I think keeps a lot of us on council up at night.
Larken Egleston, District 1 Councilman running to be at large. Larken, thank you. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Ben.
All right, more Flashpoint after this.